This is how a normal approach would look like when you will be on the Centerline. Just you will use slight rudder inputs to keep the nose centered and keep the wings level with the aileron. I will keep my picture between the dash and the threshold constant because I am aiming for the threshold. So now my airspeed is a little bit high. I will pitch up to reduce my airspeed, and my nose has moved above the threshold, which means I need to bring the power back. And as I bring the power back, the speed starts to reduce, so I'll have to pitch down for 70. The distance is increasing between the dash and the threshold, so I will increase my power again. And I hardly need any correction to stay on the center line. And now I can bring my power to idle. Let the aircraft approach close to the runway. Start flying parallel. Airspeed starts to bleed off. Hold the nose, let it sink, hold the nose, let it sink, hold the nose, and touchdown. So this is how it would look in an approach with winds from the right side. So I will use once I'm on the finals, I will use the rudder to maintain the center line, and I will keep the wings level with the ailerons. Again, keeping the picture between the dashboard and threshold same, with power and changing my pitch for airspeed. So you can see how it's outside how we are approaching in a crab. I have added slight right rudder to maintain the center line. We have about 20 knots from the right side. And once I'm about 200 feet, I can then switch to a wing low method because we don't want to touch down in a crab. So this way I will put my main landing gear that is into the wind first, and then the opposite landing gear, and then the nose. Start bringing back the power. And now we can start hitting the left rudder to keep the nose centered, and right aileron, which I don't need a lot now. Bring the power to idle. If I overcorrect, I can keep the wings neutral with the ailerons. Nose is centered now with the rudder. And I want to touch down on the right main landing gear and then the left. So that is how you will touch down when you have a crosswind. So if you had a crosswind from the left, it would touch down on the left main landing gear, and then the right main landing gear, and then the nose. However, it's not always necessary that you touch down on either main landing gear. You could touch down on both the main landing gears at the same time. So here we can see on one of the approaches, the aircraft is pretty high, and how you can know that is by looking at the runway. When it's long and narrow, that means you are pretty high. You can see in this image a normal approach, the runway approach, the threshold looks wider than when you are high on the approach. So here the aircraft is aiming for the two solid white touchdown markers near the taxiway. And so it touches down slightly ahead of that. So you always touch down slightly ahead of your aiming point because the aircraft has to float and lose that momentum before it touches down. And this is a good approach with almost no winds, so you can see how the distance between the threshold, which is the aiming point in this case, and the dash of the aircraft is constant throughout the approach. In this approach, we have a crosswind from the right, so you can see the crab approach with the nose pointed into the wind. And now that is too much correction into the wind, coming back by centering the nose with the left rudder, dropping the right wing down, dropping the right wing again, hold the left rudder, and then touching down on the main landing gears. So this is on a takeoff. Once we are airborne, the crosswind from the left is now affecting the aircraft and the correction is too less, so the aircraft is being pushed away from the centerline. So you would need more left rudder to get back on the centerline.